Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Cancer, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of May 2023. I hope you're well. I'm using the, what am I using here? Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That will be the first link in the description box. Second link in the description box is to the 6-month overviews that I did for each of the signs. They run from January to June 2023. Obviously, we're most of the way through that period now. I'm going to be starting on the next 6-month overviews very, very soon. But we still have a couple of months left, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, you're very welcome to do so. The prices have been reduced accordingly. That's the second link. Third link is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. There you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with a really sterling group of people. I love it. Oh god. Had a snowboarding mishap on Monday and my knees are, well, fucked. I think is probably the best way to put it. Healing, but slightly tender at the moment. So let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Cancer. 3 cards for Cancer, please. There we go. So we have the 5 of Cups and the 6 of Swords in your recent past. I'll just flip this around so you can see what I'm looking at. Put that out of the way. What about current energy for Cancer, please? We have the 8 of Cups. Astonishing how often these cards come up together. Really is. It's coming towards Cancer, please. Oh, what do we have here? The Ace of Swords. Right. We have the 6 of Cups at the bottom of the deck, and there's not really any surprise that that should be the case because we are in Mercury retrograde as I record this. And indeed we will be for most of May. I think off the top of my head, I'm sure it's around about the 15th that Mercury stations direct. But we do have 2-week kind of post-shadow period where the energy is starting to wind down somewhat, but still has that possibility of affecting you. So, you know, the usual rules of retrograde apply. But more specifically, understand that this period of time is very much about reassessing, going back over, you know, completing things rather than initiating things. And so the 6 of Cups is a welcome card of utilising the energy in the way that it is meant to be used. You know, the 6 of Cups is a card of the past. I like the way that it's been depicted in this card here because it gives us a sense of the fact that the past really exists nowhere other than in our own minds, and sometimes, almost all the time, in fact, there are many things that are left unfinished in there, right? They're not gathered up, they're not tidied. We haven't extricated everything that we were to learn from these things. And so the retrograde, which happens 3 to 4 times a year, is an opportunity to go back over. And it's not just going back randomly over anything. There's going to be something that's cropping up for you that requires some consideration in order to complete it properly. Now, you're the second sign that I've read for today who has a complete absence of major arcana in the cards that have come on the table, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think in some ways it's very welcome because it focuses everything that is going on for you this month internally rather than externally. If you were to try and deal with these things here, and you had, you know, a preponderance of major arcana showing its face again on top, your concentration would be fractured, your ability to be able to focus would be fractured. This month it feels like the universe is kind of leaving you alone to be able to pay attention to what is coming up for you. Now, as I'm recording this, we're staring down the barrel of a lunar eclipse, not to be too dramatic about it. My Mercury, it's just struggling right now, is in Leo, so I am sometimes a little bit dramatic about stuff. But we've got a Scorpio card right off the bat. Now, it is in the recent past, depending on when you're watching this, you know, will dictate whether this is specifically to do with the Scorpio lunar eclipse or whether this is something, a process that you are already undergoing. I'm inclined to think the latter because it's you, Cancer, and because you are pretty much psychic. And I think in some ways you get the jump on the energies before they happen. You know, you're already kind of wandering down a road, either mentally or emotionally, that the cosmic weather is kind of guiding you towards. So let's get some clarifiers out here. Oh, let's rearrange the knee. Right, tell me about this Five of Cups and Six of Swords. We have the Lover's card. Here's where the Major Arcana appears. We have the Magician. Interesting. And we have the Nine of Cups. Tell me about the Eight of Cups, please. We have Eight of Swords and the Page of Wands. The Ace of Swords, please. Three of Swords in reverse. And the Ace of Cups, with the Star card at the bottom of the deck. Right? There's that Aquarius energy of the star showing its face. And for you, it feels like a return to hope. Like, it's a little way off yet, but it is coming. You know, first there's some past stuff to work through. But as you pop out the other side, I do feel like you're going to be lighter than you are currently. Now, when we come to your recent past here, we've got the Five of Cups and the Six of Swords. And these cards here, very positive. They're the cards that we like to see in a tarot reading, where somebody's stepping into their power and then manifesting. Manifesting is a big one here. And indeed, you know, manifesting what it is that they've always wanted. But I think here, what we've got is the schism between what it was that you were trying to manifest, what it was perhaps that you even thought you were manifesting, versus the reality. As a point of contemplation, I feel like in some ways what's dawning on you is not necessarily how deceived you've been, but possibly how it is that you've deceived yourself into thinking that something that you were trying to manifest, something that you thought was everything that you always wanted, has turned out to be something entirely different. Now, it could well be that this is a situation that you're dealing with in the here and now, or it could be that your mind is going back to possibly an old relationship, possibly an old situation of any other sort, you know. And what we've got here is the Five of Cups, like I said, Scorpio, Lord of Disappointment, showing us that it didn't quite turn out the way that we had expected. Now, I like the fact that the Six of Swords here, because it does say in some ways you have moved on from this situation. But it's almost like whatever happens this month, or whatever has happened recently, has had you going back and revisiting a situation. You know, the Six of Swords is about moving away, but I always think it's quite interesting here in this card that what we've got is somebody who's going along the choppy waves rather than crossing them to get to the more peaceful water on the other side. It feels like you've sailed towards, or flown towards almost, awareness. And that's the best way that I can put it. It's awareness. A realization that the things that you thought you were manifesting actually turned out to be wrong. You know, and so you've got essentially the discrepancy between what you thought was the situation and what has turned out to be the situation. Now, you know, whether this is something that's happened, you know, relatively recently in the last 12 months or so, or whether this is something going back a little further, it's hard to say. I mean, the Six of Cups is here, so it suggests that there's a little bit of time that has elapsed between it. Five of Cups. We've got the Knight of Cups. It's Pisces energy. And the Page of Wands. And the Six of Cups again. With the Death card at the bottom of the deck. I'll just pop it there so you can see it. This is a revisitation of an old situation. And it might have started quite holistically at the beginning of the retrograde period, as we have the pre-shadow period where that energy's starting to wind up a little bit. I mean, maybe you bump into someone that you haven't seen for quite a long time, and they've passed on a nugget of gossip about somebody that you used to have a relationship with, right? Maybe it's been catalyzed in that way. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you stumbled across a Facebook post or something. Whatever happened that has triggered it, I feel like what you're doing is re-exploring your feelings. Like the feelings that you had at the outset of whatever this situation was, and where it ended up. Now, you could say that this is a road that has been heavily travelled by you already, Cancer, and maybe there isn't any need to go over it again. But being that the Death card is on the bottom of the deck, right, a card that speaks specifically to that Plutonian energy of both endings and inherent within that, new beginnings, but also this sense of power, where your power lies and how you give your power away. Like those are the things that I associate with Pluto very strongly. And so we've had you, at some undisclosed point in the past, all in, at least what you thought was all in. We've got the Lover's card, we've got the Magician card, we've got the Nine of Cups. This is everything that I ever wanted, and I manifested it, and I'm in, and it's great. And somehow it went awry. And, you came away from that situation and you learned lots of things. And maybe in a lot of ways what you've done is moved on entirely. Retrograde energy is saying, come on. I think actually, as I'm recording this, I think Pluto might have gone retrograde, started its retrograde motion back into Capricorn. It's going to do that a few times between now and 2024, the end of 2024. So in a few months' time, when it goes back into Aquarius, we're going to be retracing steps that we have already taken so far. We'll do that 3 times in total. So going back to see if where you are now yields any more information internally about what it was that caused you to be so all in here, so as to help process this, for sure, this 5 of Cups and the 6 of Swords, but also get to a place where we don't do that anymore. Where the mistakes of the past are not repeated in the future. The Son of Cups is about the way that we offer our emotion to people. It is about perhaps the way that we go all in, and like some of you all know, my Venus is in Cancer, and it's I think it's a difficult placement. I have to say, I don't like it very much, but it is probably the placement that has taught me the most of all of them that I've had. And so some thought and some consideration into, the enthusiasm, perhaps, with which we hand our cups to people. Not considering that because we're doing it from a place where we are, say, for example, emotionally dysregulated, which I think is probably fair to say a lot of people are emotionally dysregulated, that there's a tendency to fall into codependence. There's a tendency to fall into the drama of a situation, right? And even at the inception of a particular relationship, we're already sowing the seeds for its destruction, and we just aren't aware that we're doing that. This energy of looking back over the situation, now I would imagine you've got at least one, but there might be multiple situations where you could say that this was the case, is starting you thinking about the way that you show up from a position of, I would say, a great deal more wisdom than you have done before. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is do a bit of work on ourselves, and particularly if there's a specific situation that we're thinking of, like, codependency and things like that, and then to assume that that's it. we're done, we're finished, we'll move on to the next thing. I mean, the work is never done, literally never done. And there is always something that you can see when you look back that you didn't see before. And I think most of May is going to be taken up with, well, maybe most of April was taking up with it, you know. We had that solar eclipse in Aries, which is very much about the new beginnings, but I don't think that the new beginnings have quite taken off in the way that everybody's wanted them to yet, and it's possibly because there just isn't the space for it. Well, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio will almost certainly create that space. Trying to think. I'm sure I read somewhere that this lunar eclipse relates directly to whatever was going on with you around November 2021. I think I'm remembering that correctly, but I'm happy to be corrected in the comments if I'm wrong. And so, you know, I mean, what were you doing around that time frame? Who were you with? What sort of things were you experiencing at that time? Because I think it comes down to the enthusiasm of giving your cup to somebody else, and then by extension your enthusiasm to actually give away your power. Not because I think that being in a relationship is a disempowering move, but it certainly is if you are not coming from a healthy place. Like, I think it is possible to be 100% truly independent within a relationship, because you shouldn't lose yourself in it. And I've been guilty of losing myself in relationships in the past, and then I get to the point where it's absolutely frantic and I have to get out because I can't fucking breathe anymore, you know. It's on here. And in other versions of relationships, you know, the thought of not being with this person also left me feeling like I wouldn't be able to breathe. So, you know, take it as it resonates to you, but it's the enthusiasm of the giving of emotion. Now, I should say, you know, Cancer is principally concerned, you rule the 7th house, you are concerned with the good management of relationships, of being of service to people. But as we know, because we've been talking about this for 3 years now, like, it really does require you to have your own emotional roots well planted. And I think there's an opportunity here, perhaps starting in April, certainly working its way through most of May, to go back over a situation that you have already been involved with. Like I said, I think it's something that's going to catalyse that. It'll be a nugget of information that you come across, and before you know it, you're already down there and thinking about stuff. But when we move into your current energy, we've got these double eights here. We've got the 8 of Cups and the 8 of Swords, and they're almost like polarities. They almost represent the different ends of the scale. Because the 8 of Swords is about restriction. It's about being stuck or believing yourself to be stuck, which actually, in this case, is more appropriate as an interpretation. You know, it's the fact that we dictate what we can do and what we can't do. And often that comes from a place of fear, right? We're like, well, I'm stuck. I'm fucked now. I can't do anything. It's a disempowering card. Whereas the 8 of Cups is somewhat at the other end of the scale. You know, I think that is an incredibly empowering card, because what we have here is somebody is putting on their boots and going, fuck this, I'm off. Like, this is not for me anymore. Like, in the here and now, it feels to me like you realise quite how much you have grown emotionally in the time between whatever this is that your mind has been sort of casting itself back to, and where you find yourself right now. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that any of the things that you're going to be thinking about are going to be that comfortable. Probably not, I would think. Scorpio, you know, any Scorpio-related astrology tends to be a little bit bumpy, because it's kind of wrenching stuff from it. It's purging things from a really, really deep perspective, a really, really deep place that we don't necessarily even know is there, and much less, you know, feel ready to let go of. But we've got these different ends of the spectrum, and we've got the Page of Wands. I think what was really clear here is that it's very, very important that you don't lose your enthusiasm for people, Cancer. You don't lose your enthusiasm for relationships. I mean, that is not the thing that is supposed to go with you. What is supposed to go is anything that is acting as a hindrance to you having healthy, well-developed relationships. And I don't just mean with, on a sexual basis or anyone that you're intimate with. I mean everyone generally. Those relationships that you have that are important to you, whether they are friends, family, work colleagues, spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, your polycule, whatever. Certainly, at least in an abstract sense, in a conceptual sense, they are supposed to remain. What is supposed to improve is your level of discernment around, the red bunting instead of the red flags. We talked about that before. But understanding the root of the enthusiasm to be wedded in some way to one person or another. Now, I'm meaning that in a looser term than actually going through a marriage ceremony, but the way that you bond to people. Where is it coming from? Why is it the way that it is? Well, I imagine it's very different now compared to how it has been in the past. But I think there's going to be some really interesting revelations as you come across thoughts that you haven't had for a while. And I would imagine stand in a state of some disbelief that you ever held those opinions of yourself or about yourself. Let's pull some more cards for this Eight of Swords, because we have the World card. That's tremendous. We have the World card and we have the Son of Swords, which is Gemini energy. We've got the Ten of Swords at the bottom of the deck there, right? So we've got double cards of completion here. We've got double cards of things coming to an end. I mean, whatever situation it is that you're rolling around in your mind, maybe it's in your heart, in this Mercury retrograde, it's not something that just kind of petered out. It is not something where you and somebody else went amicably parted and went on your merry way. This is something that really fucking hurt. This is something that perhaps had some level of betrayal in it, maybe left you feeling a little bit humiliated. I mean, this could be a work situation as much as it could be a relationship, an intimate relationship situation. But it feels to me like it's actually the musing on the endings that is important, and then by extension the musings on beginnings. And like I said before about sowing the seeds of destruction in new relationships that you started simply because you had not quite twigged what needed to change first, right? The way that you showed up here. It's not about reliving it. It feels like it's something a little more objective, a little bit more detached. We've got this Eight of Cups here. Really from the Nine of Cups, where you would be wanting to go was the 10, but as you hit the 9, so you realised it wasn't at all what you actually wanted, and what was required was by necessity a step back. I have to look around and go, well, no, this actually doesn't work for me at all. I'm going a different direction. It seems like it's the Eight of Swords with this Ten of Swords and the World card that are really important here. And more than that, a sort of intellectual curiosity is asking you to look at your past behaviour. Now, I keep using the words like intellectual curiosity, detachment, stuff like that, because although what we're doing is analysing something that is quite emotional in nature for you, what I don't want you to do is invest emotionally in it. I don't want you to feel like shit about this, because it's not the purpose of what's playing out here. It's about increasing your depth of understanding, right? Increasing the insight into you, but actually starting this kind of dialogue, between the different bits of yourself. Like, how did we end up there? How did we get there? What did we not see? How did we deal with the ending, whatever it was? Other things that you would do differently this time? Is there information that you would that it's possible for you to take away from whatever the situation was that you did not see at the time. Were you blinded by the pain and the inability of knowing what to do, such that possibly you might have missed a lesson that was playing out for you? I think that's possible. But the Knight of Swords is saying, bring everything to the table and look at it, because there might well be something that you've missed here. Now I keep bringing up the Scorpio full moon, but it's not full moon, lunar eclipse. Because that is a purge. That's what it's designed for. It's a purging energy. It's usually a little bit uncomfortable, but what it does is it draws to light that which we have not seen, so that we can let it go. The corollary of that is, whatever you're holding on to here, you're not quite aware that you're still holding on to it. And this is where the ability to draw more wisdom from the situation comes in, because you've come a million miles from where you were. That representing what you thought you were getting involved with, this representing what you ended up with, but this here being the, what else was going on? What did I not see this time? How can I change that moving forwards? The endings are the key here, Cancer. They really are. Page of Wands. I've got the Three of Cups. Now, the Three of Cups is emotional support networks, right? And with that Seven of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, it could be that your emotional support networks turned out to be pretty shite, right? They didn't really work the way that they were intended. But maybe the issue was the way that you were accessing this emotional support. Right? Maybe it was the way that you were processing the ending. I mean, for some of you, the Three of Cups can represent a third party in a relationship where there should only be two. And if that's happened to you, then it sucks. I know what it's like. So the energy here is really thoughtful. It is very internalized. There's not a lot going on outside of you. Aside from these major arcana cards that are popping up underneath, really speaking to the foundation of the matter. What's actually happening here is for you to sort through what is important, right? For you to start deciding what your next moves forward are going to be. But doing that by way of working out where the restriction was last time. How did you cope with the endings last time? I mean, that's the Seven of Pentacles here, right? Is a situation that is not exactly optimal. There's a certain amount of yawning predictability about this card, the way that it's set up. We see it in these perfect lines going 90 degrees. There's nothing joyous in there. There's nothing fun. There's something, like I said, yawningly predictable about the whole thing. And the question is, if change is necessary, what needs to change in order to bring that about? You're not the only sign. I think Gemini had a kind of similar sort of message, which is that you need to go in and have a look around, because there's information there waiting for you to pick it up. And if you combine that with whatever it is that the Scorpio lunar eclipse is bringing up to the surface, it could well be a month where lots and lots of pennies drop at the same time. Right? That next layer of information that was not accessible to you at the time where something broke down, and now is. It's time to go looking for it, because what we've got coming towards you in May is the Ace of Swords with the Three of Swords in reverse and the Ace of Cups. We've had double cards of endings, now we're having double cards of beginnings. We've got, first and foremost, a new way of interpreting the world. The Ace of Swords is about the way that we see the world. It's about our perceptions. Often it's about the way that we perceive ourselves to be in the world. No? But it's also the truth. And it feels like May is a month of getting closer to the truth, whatever the truth is. The truth about who you are, about how you show up in relationships, So this who you are is quite interesting, because we've got a house in there. I don't know if you can see it, you probably can't see it, right? There's a house in the branches of the tree there, and there's also a woman on this side here. There's other little images in there. But the woman is kind of reaching for something. Like, how do you reach for what you need? Do you know what you need? Why do you see it so easily in other people and not see it in yourself? You know, what needs filling up in you? Your identity. Like, that's what the house speaks to me about, right? The house is a symbol of the self. What is your understanding of your identity right here, right now? And what do you want moving forwards? How do these ideas here jive with what you thought you wanted back here when you were trying really hard to manifest something? Because this Ace of Cups is talking about your relationship with yourself first and foremost, right? And we have here an opportunity for great healing, right? Great release, actually. Like I keep saying, it's a purge. And while the purge might be quite uncomfortable while it's happening, you always feel better afterwards, unless there's something else that needs purging, and then you go again, you know, you head over the toilet, holding your own hair out of your face, that sort of thing. Now that's Three of Swords. We've got the Wheel of Fortune, which is interesting. Sagittarius card. Ooh, and the Eight of Pentacles. Now, King of Swords as well. So we've got double Aquarius energy here between the Father of Swords and the Star. They're both cards that talk about Aquarius, or are ruled by Aquarius, rather. We have the Emperor card, which is a card of, and it's a very active, very masculine Aries card. It's about taking control of things. And then we've got these two cards here that speak of both the need to learn something, the need to commit to something, and in this case it would be learning about your healing and you know, actively committing to healing something that is being revealed to you this month. But with this Nine of Wands at the bottom of the deck, I cannot help but feel we're back to boundaries again. The need to check that the boundaries are in the right place, check the maintenance of them, you know, make sure you've got them up at all in the places that you need them. But it's taking quite an assertive stance over, certainly over your relationship with yourself, but also about your commitment to self moving forward. As Father of Swords, King of Swords, he is for me an arbiter, right? He makes a judgment between one thing and another. The preceding card, obviously the Queen of Swords, is about developing a high level of discernment, right? Being able to work through a great deal of information and work out what is true and what is not, you know, what is useful, what is not, and then handing that to the king to make a decision. Well, what I'm seeing here is that actually you are the Queen of Swords in this situation, Cancer, and it's not necessarily a comfortable place for you to be. I mean, you know, swords rust in water, right? And then it just pollutes the water that it's in. They're not natural bedfellows, but there's something kind of necessary about the way that you're approaching the quality and the clarity of the water that you reside in, right? The way that the water moves through you. It's almost like a washing yourself clean. Washing yourself clean, washing the swords clean. It's washing your mind clean. But it's also washing your emotions clean. You know, you've moved on so hard, so well, since whatever this was in operation. But this is the last shove over the finish line. certainly for this particular act of your story, you know? And it seems very much to be pushing you to the place of being able to be sovereign, be autonomous about the decisions that you make, and not feel yourself kind of, because of that psychic level sensitivity that you have to other people, not feeling what they need and allowing it to supersede what you need. That feels to be quite a boundaried, quite disciplined, quite active and male approach to protecting what is really important, which is your healing and your relationship with yourself. You know, possibly you might have noticed that you've made a few cock-ups, right? A few things that have kind of carried over from whatever this was over here. And that's okay, because now you've seen them and now you can do something about them. But I think you're going to come out of this month being much more assertive than you were going into it, and much more decisive about your method of travelling forwards, regardless of where it is that you think that you're going, or whether or not you know where you're going, to be honest. Because the Wheel of Fortune, as well as speaking to a need for us to learn something, a need for us to really take something on board, it also speaks to those changes that occur outside of us. And what Mo was saying, right, you want something to change outside of you, wherever that Seven of Pentacles was, then you need to change something inside first. You move on to the state of discipline and commitment to self that changes things permanently. Nine of Wands, right? Your boundaries, the way that you take charge of your own situation, the way that you make the judgments that you do, particularly when it comes to relationships and whatnot. I think this is a really, really interesting reading, Cancer, because with that Star card, and we have the Fool at the bottom of the deck here, I think that what you're looking for is true connection. I think that you've realised that what has passed for it has been somewhat of a facsimile of of a thing. It's been photocopied so many times that it's lost detail. It's not a true representation. Your understanding, at least at this point, of relationships is not a true representation of what relationships could be. There's something bigger here to strive for. And the idea of being vulnerable is one that is utterly terrifying, and yet there is something kind of intoxicating about it too. The thought of being able to have a relationship where that was something that you could do, it feels very inviting. But in order to be in that kind of relationship, you need to be able to identify what would work, the kind of person that you're looking for in the first instance, but also what you are bringing to the table. Is there some baggage left? Possibly. Are there ways in which you can grow? Certainly. Like, the work is never done. But it really does feel like you're pulling your shit together, Cancer. And in a lot of ways, I feel like this is exactly what the retrograde is for. You go over what you know, you revise what you know. You go back and see if there's any more information that you might have missed the first time, and you pull that into the mix too. And then when the retrograde ends, it's time for you to move on, but you're moving on in a place that is symbolized by a new way of thinking and a new way of feeling. This is an interesting crossover between the two of these here. We've got the emotions and the heart, and we have the swords. It's a new way of dealing with those. Like, they don't actually have to cross over. Not like this. And there's something about this that's been so hideously predictable. And I think you're done with it. Completely done with it. So now, whatever it is that you need to learn, you're paying attention. You're going to be a very good student on this one. And you're willing to put the work in. And I said, I don't think this is just limited to you know, intimate sexual relationships either. I think this is right across the board. In some ways, Cancer, you're kind of done with doing things the way that you always have done. And rather than, you know, kind of sobbing into a tub of ice cream or something like that, there's something much more proactive about the way that you are examining all of this for the benefit. This is really, really good. Alright, I'm going to go over to Vimeo now and find out what it is that you need to know about May. Exactly. So if you would like to join me over there, you're very, very welcome to do so. If not, no shade, that's perfectly fine. Just don't really expect too much in the way of movement forward this month. I mean, that's not what it's about for anyone. It's about taking stock and adding to our own personal repositories of wisdom, you know. June will be much more, much better set up for that kind of movement forwards. But to be honest, where you end up at the end of May seems to me to be a very good place indeed. So I won't worry about that too much. I know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.